like for a page from the start to the end? What's happening?
You take this one?
Sure. Yeah, even though we tried our best to make it as small as possible, we had too much in there.
There was some sort of meetup from GraphQL in Amsterdam with the guild, I think. Uri, that's his name?
Yeah.
He was there as well, and already at that time, I think we had a discussion with some other colleagues, like, this is pretty cool what they're doing, and I think at that stage in time, you guys were already in proof of concept, right?
I think actually we were already in production by that time.
Oh, wow.
Indeed.
All right, awesome. Welcome, guys. Crazy happy to have you actually finally on the podcast. I think we've been discussing it for such a long time already, and
you've been on the top of our wish list since the start. I think.
And I think 2 weeks ago-ish, I again looked at you guys' conference story from San Francisco, where you guys went. Super cool, super nice story, to be honest. So super happy to have you both on the podcast today.
Yeah, it's good that you had time in your busy schedule in evangelizing this whole story.
Yeah,
nice.
So welcome Lars and Ann.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us here.
Anytime.
Yeah, it's maybe good to introduce yourselves. Ann, maybe you want to go first?
I can start. So I'm Ann. I've been at Bol for 9 years now, mainly as software engineer, especially for around the shop, the shop channels, for the apps and in the web shop. And I'm currently lead engineer, and I've been on this journey of GraphQL within Bol for a while already. So I'm also part of the GraphQL stewardship.
I'd like to hear a bit more about the stewardship later, but thank you for the introduction, Anne.
Yeah, really cool.
Cool. Well, I'm Lars. I'm a staff engineer at Bol, and been here for 8 years and a little bit. And much like Ann, I've been working on our GraphQL journey for the last 4, maybe a little bit more years now. I've been really enjoying it.
Yeah, crazy though. Like indeed, you mentioned 4 years-ish or something, and indeed you mentioned it as well when you did, or when you both took the stage in San Francisco, right? It was like at the start of 2020. I was like, what? Are we already in this project for quite a while already? But that's really cool to hear.
Yeah.
So how did that start? Like you guys were invited to get the stage on San Francisco?
No, I think it started out because we have been going on this project for like 3 years and a little bit, I think. And we thought, okay, by now we've learned so much and we have a cool story to tell. And we're also feeling in a comfortable place to actually be sharing our story. So we submitted a proposal for the talk, and lo and behold, we were invited over the pond to give our story.
So cool. Yeah. History was made.
Yeah, I think it started during the GraphQL conference 23, so the year before. So we went there and then basically saw the GraphQL community, how basically that thrives, and we were both really enthusiastic about and we went back to Bol with all the knowledge that we gained, and then we said we have to also give something back to this GraphQL community.
Mm-hmm.
So that's also where it started, and said at least we should also submit the talk next year, and also to share basically our journey at Bol, how we actually approach that.
Yeah, cool. So what we are interested in is, so why did you embark on this journey? What was the problem? What was the issues you guys were facing?
I think the reason why we got started on this journey is because as Bol, as quite a big e-commerce company in the Netherlands and Belgium, we had grown so much over the past 20-something years that we needed to adapt to the new size of our organization and scale and serving all of the customers that we have. And that came with an initiative to reevaluate where we stand technically, or otherwise, we took a blank sheet and started drawing what our shopping architecture, so everything that is serving our customers, would look like in this new world, or this new us. Mm-hmm. And from there we we evaluated lots of different technologies and approaches, and also came into contact with GraphQL. We did a couple of proof of concepts with that, and actually liked it so much that that we decided, hey, this is something that we do want to continue on.
Hmm. Yeah, that's really cool, and especially because I mean it's quite a challenge, right? Like you face a certain problem within a pretty large-scale company, architectural problems, I would say, and then, well, you have to start brainstorming with a blank sheet. How did you guys approach this? Like, was GraphQL one of the first things that popped up, or were there a lot of other things crossing your minds, or how do you start on such a journey?
Yeah, I think it's also good that GraphQL is basically part of the architecture. It's just one piece of one technology of that shopping architecture that we have basically put in place. Because there's also the front-end channels where iOS and Android and also web.
Yeah.
So I would say GraphQL is just part of that puzzle, but it really serves well for composition, like how to basically fetch data from our landscape and also in a distributed way with all the subgraphs. And I think that is really the strong characteristic of GraphQL in Federation that has brought us at this moment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so can you maybe explain a little bit more about the federation of GraphQL? What is it? What does it bring?
It bring also autonomy to basically to our landscape. So we have so many services.
Yeah.
It has been growing, from what Lars said 20 years ago, from maybe a few services to over 100, 200 services, and to display all those data to our customers, it has to be aggregated or it has to be composed. And we have been doing that basically all in the shopping channels for years and years. And we saw that there was just such a bottleneck, that composition putting in the channels and leveraging the GraphQL Federation, we basically put the composition more close to the producer, how to basically compose all our data in our landscape.
Yep. Yeah, it's cool. It's a really big change though as well. And I still remember, I think you guys were there as well, but there was some sort of meetup from GraphQL in Amsterdam with the guild, I think. I think you're Uri, that's his name?
Yeah.
He was there as well. And already at that time, I think we had a discussion with some other colleagues, like, this is pretty cool what they're doing. And I think at that stage in time, you guys were already in proof of concept, right?
I think actually we were already in production by that time.
Oh, wow.
Indeed. Yeah.
So how did that go from like you guys validated it with a proof of concept? Where do you go from that? Because you probably, showed it off. You probably showed it to others, tried influencing like this might be a good decision to go for. What's next?
That was a long journey. Like I mentioned, we evaluated various different kinds of technologies, some of them for the composition that unmentioned, but also other different front-end technologies. So that whole picture, we tried fitting everything together to make sure that it was a nice cohesive picture and everything worked in sort of unison. Most importantly, that it sort of achieved the values of the architecture that we were after. So for example, for us, time to market is really important because we want to get features out quickly. We really love doing experiments. So it's important to be able to quickly iterate and get something live. So based on all of our proof of concepting, we looked at the results of that and how it scored on these values that we were after, and then figured out that GraphQL for the sort of the data part was definitely a great fit. And from there on, we try to break it down into small steps and get something working, very basic, and slowly move onto something that can actually be shown to a customer on production. So there was a really small scope that we started out with, a small page that was rarely visited by actual customers, and we built out the architecture step by step to be able to work towards that goal of actually showing our customers that page.
Yeah.
So what were the learnings you encountered with the starting small? Did you have to pivot a lot, or was it?
Lots of learnings, to be honest. Starting small, one of the learnings was you can always start smaller.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Even though we tried our best to make it as small as possible, we still, in the end, or looking back, we had too much in there, and we took too long to actually start learning. That said, we did use all those learnings to evolve our ideas, and we made lots of changes there. But I think, starting smaller was definitely one of the learnings.
Yeah, and I think also one of the learnings that we had was getting the data out there as quickly as possible. At first, we had an architecture with GraphQL in its place, it has to be built natively, so GraphQL should be built by the producing teams. But we saw that was really not giving us enough speed to evolve and also to evaluate the box. So then we just moved to another direction, is with an idea in mind, getting the data out there as possible with the current technologies.
That sounds interesting, because that also seems like quite a challenge, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if just in general, I think if a big company is onto something, so let's say a REST architecture, and out of the blue they have to, do something on the side, how did you manage indeed that adoption, or influence their teams to be able to get the data to that certain level?
It's basically with any new technologies or any change in way of working, whether it's for developers or for the team or for our domain, it is a change. So you really get them also on board and also on this new journey or story. And I think that was also really essential with the adoption of GraphQL within this new architecture. It's not about technology only. It's also about our dear colleagues. How do we get them on board? And so we also put a lot of, effort also in explaining, having roadshows, getting basically people on board. And I think that's also personally one of my biggest learning. It's not about technology only.
That's another super interesting insight. It's not only technology, but also about people. So you really need to get them on board.
Indeed.
And you tried a lot of things, I think. So what were the most successful things to get people on board? What really worked well?
I think, like Al mentioned, those roadshows that we did were very, very successful. There have been lots of coffees with people. But I think one of the things that made a big difference was also that our whole ideas were not only about what's in it for the front end, for the shop, but there was also something to be gained for the people that we were asking things from. Mainly because we could innovate much faster, and they could get their features out faster too. So if a data producing team made some changes or they built a cool new feature, they typically needed to wait on one of the shopping teams before a customer could actually see it. And one of the reasons why we chose Federation and GraphQL is because we were able to cut out that dependency pretty much entirely, which also helped them in their goals. So it's also not only about what's in it for us, but also a little bit about what's in it for them.
Yeah, that's kind of the key, I think. Make it interesting, or at least it is interesting. For all parties.
Definitely, yeah. It's always one of the best tools to get someone on board, right? What's in it for them. And I think that's honestly pretty cool because, we all know there are a lot of deadlines and all these kind of things. So if you make it really concrete, so you mentioned the smallest thing we started on, was it the homepage, if I'm correct?
No, it was a seller page.
Okay. Yeah. So if you make that really concrete, right, there's indeed loads and loads of data that we get from the landscape to get it. How did that work, for example, if let's say you need to display a price somewhere, but the team didn't have time to provide that data via GraphQL? Was there something we did or that you guys did within the project to get it up to speed?
We have something in place for that we call the shop connector. It's like an intermediate solution. where we basically create GraphQL schemas based on the current REST interface. So we basically make connection from GraphQL to REST, or REST to GraphQL actually. And that is basically something that one of the teams also can implement. It's actually a contribution model. So anyone within Bol, any developer can basically create an MR to create such connected. Just basically getting that, again, data as quickly as possible in the graph. So basically we enable then the sub channels, so the front end, to basically already get on this journey as quick as possible.
Yeah.
And give the producing team actually time to get them on board. Okay, what is GraphQL and how can you actually create this GraphQL natively later? So that's basically buying us time.
And I think to add to that, this is one of the things that we did technically to help speed us up. But what we also did was we set up a stewardship group it's a team of multidisciplinary GraphQL experts. So it contains people from our mobile app developers to web developers, our backend developers in the shop, and also developers from data producing teams. And together they had discussions on, okay, how do we want to use GraphQL in our company, and what do we think are best practices, and can we derive any API guidelines from that? So that group of people really helped us shape how we want to use GraphQL in the company, and then also help other teams to design good GraphQL schemas and APIs to give them a big head start, essentially.
That sounds like a solid approach. So you guys have ideas, you have stewards, ambassadors. Together you think of the best ways to do it with the brains of people from every corner of the company, and then evangelize it. I think this is also an approach that I think would work for every big change in the company, right?
I think so.
Yeah. So guys, shall we talk a little bit about GraphQL, but just for like a noob, like me. So how does GraphQL? What is the essence of GraphQL? How does it work? Maybe you can explain to me, like for a page from the start to the end. What's happening?
You take this one.
Solid.
Sure. So what GraphQL is, it's a query language. So it allows us to query data from our backends, but in such a way that the clients can actually determine what information they want to know. So the client can say, I'm really interested to know about this product's title, and I also want to know the price of the product. And if they want additional fields or information about the product, they can also add that. And this is really different to the way that we used to do composition of our user interfaces, because in the past we had to build a sort of an aggregate for each specific use case. So we have various product tiles on our throughout our shop, and some, for example, do show the price and others don't, and some do show the product ratings and others don't. And for each of those cases, we needed to create an aggregate by fetching data from various sources and then combining it into the result. But by using GraphQL, we can actually give that ability to the consumer or the client, and they can tell us, hey, I'm interested in this field. And then generically, we just fetch that and give them that result without needing to deliberately create that process.
Yeah. So it's also with GraphQL Federation, the composition is always in the schema. So from a consumer's perspective, they actually explicitly say, for this product, I want the field title. and the price, and maybe ratings. And under the hood, there's a nice a router that does basically the query planning and does exactly knows to which subgraph it needs to fetch the exact data that consumer wants. And that is part of the kind of the solving the underfetching problem. Because before that, in the form architecture, basically that underfetching happens a lot. So basically fetch from one source one data, like product. You go to the offer, you fetch the offer data, go to the rating source to fetch the rating. And that's basically now part of the schema itself. So we tackled basically the underfetching problem.
Yeah.
And the other one is the overfetching. Like with the REST calls or whatever, all the APIs, you basically fetch the whole data. So you fetch the whole product, this including title, description, and what kind of attributes. If you fetch the offer by ID, you fetch also the price, etc., etc. So you basically do overfetching of your data sources. And the nice thing about GraphQL with federation, the consumer is dictating exactly what they want and what they need, and with the router, it can basically optimize for the queries to the subgraphs.
It sounds super flexible, but also super efficient.
It's quite magical.
Indeed.
It's probably one of those ideas when you hear it. Hey, why didn't we think of this before? Why did we do it in the old way? But so those are the advantages. You can really flexibly. Okay, now I want this field, for instance. I can just put it in the query, and we get it instantly, or leave thing out. Are there also disadvantages with using GraphQL?
Probably. Most likely, always. No, I think one of the, let's call it a challenge, is that Bol has always been a REST-focused company. So now introducing this new technology that is GraphQL, that works differently, requires a different mindset when you're modeling, really is a challenge. To try and get so many teams onto a sort of level of knowledge that they can be successful, and obviously that ties back into the stewardship that we talked about earlier.
And I think apart from that, it's also really cool to see the mental model change, especially also on the front end side, where people now really feel autonomy or responsibility even for like, okay, we want to fetch these kinds of fields, but there's still logic to be done on the front end side. Is this actually something we want, or can we do different things? And I think that's also a really big change in how we perceive, okay, what's an optimum way of retrieving the data, instead of we believe whatever the aggregate sends us is fine.
Yeah.
So I really love that change in the mental model here as well.
Yeah. So were there any other insights you had from this whole track?
Yeah, I think also part of like the evolution, how we basically adopt GraphQL, is also the developer experience. Because in essence, where GraphQL started is basically a language specification. It doesn't have anything around it, it's just a specification. But what I've also learned, like the last few years, is that actually it's starting to basically grow. It's really an ecosystem. There's a lot of toolings now out there, and we basically also embrace that. We have also introduced that within Bol, just for the whole tech stack to get all the toolings for our developers, for our teams. But because with only GraphQL, there's actually nothing.
Okay.
So that's the whole tooling. We have also Hive, like the schema registry, that has also nice metrics around, okay, what kind of fields are being used by which consumers, which also benefit producers a lot. So we're also basically slowly introducing more toolings to make it more mature to develop in.
Yeah, and it's really cool to see how indeed we're growing into these kind of things, because if you were to have 25 years of experience in REST, I think maybe a bit longer as Bol, it's quite daunting as well. I think to just start with something, well, I don't want to say the opposite, but it's definitely something new. And as you mentioned, it was just a specification. It's pretty cool to see, because I would also think, because now the story sounds pretty good to me, were there also like things that we bumped into that we were like, I don't want to say this is not alluring, but we might have messed up here, or we should have done it differently, or is there anything on this journey?
I'm just thinking. Yeah,
Well, this sounds good.
yeah. No, I think also how we're basically designing our schema, our APIs. I think from the start it was quite a struggle. How do we actually naming center fields? Is basically just check our current REST API and just copy paste the namings and then put it in our GraphQL schema. We quickly learned that was not the best approach.
Okay.
We also want to change something. Okay, how we actually basically designing our domain, how we're actually creating those types and entities, how we should expose it to our developers in the front end to make it more developer friendly to use our landscape. So I think that's what at the start it was really tough to designing the GraphQL schemas. But just I think you have that within any API, I would say, just about naming conventions, best practices. We had a nice REST API guidelines already within Bol, and now we also introduced the GraphQL API guidelines. And I think that really helps us really well now. We have really quite a solid GraphQL API guidelines, still evolving. And that helps a lot of teams now already to really kickstart their GraphQL schema design.
And I think an additional point that was a struggle was we had so much tooling around REST in our company, and you may not know, but GraphQL works via one path in the URL. So much of that tooling needed to be adapted to this new way of working. That was a challenge, but one definitely that can be overcome.
Many learnings, and I think you guys grown quite mature in the approach during the years. So maybe for people listening, for other companies who are interested now in what you guys have told, do you have any tips and tricks for people who want to start this up?
There's really touch upon again about the community. So you really have to create, I think within Bol as well, or within your own company, a GraphQL community. Just to have really ambassadors for GraphQL, because they will become your future GraphQL experts. So you have to really give them the stage as well. So that's also what we did in the beginning a lot. Like we also have the demos, and then we just give the stage to a team, a developer that started their GraphQL journey. Just maybe a small implementation of GraphQL, but they give them the stage, make them enthusiastic. Maybe also, invite them to the GraphQL stewardship. And I think that is also what will make it a success or it will break, like your adoption. You really need that community.
Yeah, I fully agree there. And then some pragmatic tips too, like starting small and then definitely make it smaller. Try and get something to production as fast as possible, because that's where you're gonna learn. Don't be afraid to go back on your choices if you found you made a mistake.
You will make mistakes.
Yeah, for sure.
As you should.
Guarantee.
So I think these things can really help. And what we found to be very true is that the GraphQL community is very inviting, very open, very willing to help out. So definitely make use of that.
That's amazing. And you already touched upon quite some tooling that you guys used. So I think a lot of things from the guild, right? If I'm not mistaken. Can we go over that small list once again, just for the listeners?
Yeah. So we use, unmentioned, we use the Hive schema registry that we're very much a fan of. which helps us with the composition of various schemas, GraphQL schemas. Gives us a ton of insights in field usages, general usage patterns, failure rates, success rates, and everything that's in between, which is really great. We use Apollo's GraphQL router as our very smart query engine that takes care of the federation part. And we use GraphQL Protect for many of our input validations to protect our APIs against abuse.
Nice. Can you tell more about the last one?
Sure.
Because I know what it is. But
Yeah. So, well, on our journey where we learned a lot of things, we found that GraphQL in all its powers also comes with potential abuse factors. There's a lot written about it, especially nowadays. But back then, there weren't a ton of tools to help you protect yourself. Especially in the spirit of we got so much from the community and we really wanted to give back. I spend my evenings and my weekends on writing a solution which is called GraphQL Protect, which has implementations for protecting you against many of the common abuse attack vectors in the GraphQL landscape, and is compatible with any GraphQL API.
Cool.
Yeah, I believe the idea started during the GraphQL Conference 23, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. We saw a really great talk there on API abuse, and that really sparked our it gave us inspiration to build this tool.
Yeah.
It's also nice to give this back to the community, right? Solving a problem. Awesome.
Indeed.
Yeah, felt amazing.
I can imagine. So you've done a lot of amazing things. So what's next? Are there any things on the horizon where you want to work on, or are you finished?
I think we're still on the journey. It's definitely not finished. I think it will evolve more and more. And I think the next thing for me personally will be the GraphQL Conf 25 in Amsterdam this year.
Oh, cool.
So it's
closer by.
Yeah, it's really home. And yeah, I'm actually planning to also submit a new talk there.
Cool.
I'm thinking more about in direction of schema evolution.
Awesome.
Basically to share that with the GraphQL community again.
Sounds like they're coming back.
I hope so.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed the talk. So awesome, guys. Honestly, learned a lot today.
Yeah.
So thanks a lot for being here. And I'm really looking forward to spread it even more without the company and going fully live maybe with GraphQL in the near future. So thanks for being here.
Yeah,
nice.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks a
very
lot.
Insightful, very inspiring.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us here.
Hope to see you again soon whenever we can finish with the full project. Thanks.
Thanks.